Steeler Fury. SteelerFury.com.
Hey, you are listening to the Pittsburgh Steelers Show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am your host, Brad Shuttleben, a.k.a. Wil Masisak, also known as Accidental Zen on Twitter. That's me right there. I am joined once again for a Week 1 preview in our 14th season of covering Steelers football. The more things change, the more they stay the same. To that end, with me, as he has been from the beginning, is Dom, a.k.a. FC. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I am fantastic. How are you, sir?
Fan-damtastic, yes. The old Temesis. Look it up. Also with us from somewhere in the greater Pittsburgh area. He's lost right now. He's searching for his GPS. His name is SteelPerch. He's with us. How are you, sir?
I'm back, but I'm doing drills only.
Drills only. Oh, my God. And with us, I think, also doing not only drills, but doing drills all over the NFL as he covers not only the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the NFL for his own show, which I'm sure we'll pimp before this thing is over. His name is Jeremy Kohlman. He's back again. How are you, sir?
Doing great. Ready for a football season to start.
All right. Tell me your show so we can get it over with, that we've prompted people to go listen to, because I've forgotten now exactly the name of it in the detail.
Gotcha. It's called The Extra Point. We're on KLAA Radio out in Los Angeles, 8:30 a.m. Sports Network. You can catch us at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time on that channel.
10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. That is, incidentally, the time that Dom rises every day? Possibly. Yeah, see, I knew it. At any rate, glad. Yes, I knew it was The Extra Point, but I wanted to be sure, so I don't want you to give your own plug there, which is good. Gentlemen, also FC, let's talk about your Pittsburgh Steelers a little bit. I'm going to throw it to you first, Perch. One story we got to get on and get out of the way before we talk actual football questions and things here, and that is, I heard that you are on strike, only doing drills tonight because your contract is not signed. How does this parallel the situation of TJ Watt? And is this something that we should be concerned about, that he's not signed, or are we not really worrying about it right now? What's the deal?
I think it's a non-issue until it is an issue, to use a Mike Tomlinism. But, I mean, Polamalu signed his on the tarmac getting ready to go play the first game. So if it's not signed by, Sunday at 1 o'clock, then it becomes an issue. Up until then, it's just fodder for, sports media people to make a big deal out of and act like drama queens and have something to fill airtime with. So that, I really don't pay much attention to it. Whenever they start bitching about it on the radio when I'm driving, I usually turn the station. So I don't think it's a big deal. I think the Steelers know, Mr. Rooney's quote was always, I don't mind overpaying for a great player. It's the shitty players that you don't want to give too much money to. And, they realize what they have with Watt, and he wants to be here, and I think they'll work it out.
I mean, Jeremy, it feels like it's just really about this. How much is guaranteed in year one versus year two? Like that's such a silly thing to have an impasse over. But I mean, I get wanting your money up front, but do you think there's more to it than that?
No, I mean, he's been produced at such a high level these last 2 years, all pro both years, arguably could have won, defensive player of the year last year, just finished behind Aaron Donald again, who has like a whole trophy room of defensive MVP player of the years now. I think he just wants to be respected and be paid what he's, going to get elsewhere if it's not in Pittsburgh. Highly doubt he ever leaves Pittsburgh, but, that's the type of contract we're talking about here is going to make him the highest paid defender in the NFL. So, I mean, he just wants what he's owed at this point.
I mean, Dom, you want to put a percentage chance on it that he doesn't sign a deal before 1 o'clock on Sunday?
I'll go 60-40 that'll be signed.
Wow, only 60.
Yeah. The funny thing about precedent, and we got guys that we're going to be looking to extend in the future. If you do it for TJ Watt, you got to do it for Deontay Johnson or Chase Claypool or Juju Smith-Schuster or
Minka.
Najee Harris on the line. So, once, for special players, obviously you may make exceptions, and TJ Watt is a special player, and he's the type of player you make an exception for. But, what his agent and what he's asking for, which I think is fair, is a little bit more than Khalil Mack, and I don't think the Steelers are ready to put $50 to $60 million guaranteed. And I think that's what TJ Watt's camp, I think that's their sticking point, and I believe they're going to stick with it. And I don't know if the Steelers will meet that, request. So I'll say 60-40, maybe 65-35.
Wow, because me personally, I'm feeling more like 95% he signs the deal, because they don't really seem like either side is proceeding as if it's going to be a problem, and that leads me to believe that it's not really a problem. So, but maybe you're on it. I guess I wouldn't roll anything out. It is the NFL and it is money, but wow, that just seems like I can't believe that they would let the situation get to that with the player they actually want to keep, who plays a premium position. That's the difference between this and like Lev Bell, I think. But man, well, I guess I'll ask the sort of sub question to this. Since he is now practicing, and it looks like whatever happens, he's going to play. Perch, do you think that TJ Watt will be in a position to play at a high level on Sunday, despite the fact that he hasn't gone through camp and he's only practicing 3 days or 2 days?
Yeah, he's an edge rusher. Those skills don't just erode. I think the thing that maybe come into it might be a little conditioning or, game situations. But it's week 1 in the NFL, and none of these guys did a whole hell of a lot. Let's be honest. Your A players didn't play a ton in the preseason, if part of one game, and they aren't hitting like they used to in training camp anymore. So I think it's, again, pretty much a non-issue. Give him a couple weeks to get his wind up to, playing football is a little bit different than running sprints, but I don't think it's a big deal. Yeah,
FC, it feels like the signing of Melvin Ingram, right? Yes. I actually for his entire career, I've been getting him mixed up with Mel Gordon. Melvin Ingram, the signing feels like it's a real nice hedge at this point now, knowing what you know, right?
Oh, it was an excellent, I don't think that the Steelers necessarily expected a problem with getting the TJ Watt deal done, but it is an excellent hedge. Plus, it allows you to, TJ Watt may only play 40 snaps. And maybe they'll play Melvin Ingram and work TJ Watt in, or maybe it'll be an even split, with Highsmith, Melvin Ingram, and TJ Watt. So, yeah, it was Kevin Colbert, I thought, so far has had a pretty good offseason, it looks like.
Yeah, I feel like you kind of knocked it out of the park. If he signs, if they sign TJ Watt before the season starts, I feel like it would have been hard for him to do much better in this offseason. And even without that, he's still, done a lot. Hard to argue that. So Perch, we've had this distraction now for the last week or so, strongly, of the TJ Watt thing. What are the other red flag issues that you are keeping your eye on that are being obscured right now with this obsession with what Watt is doing?
Well, do you want to clear the next 5 or 10 minutes of the podcast? We're talking red flag. This is what I'm good at, right?
Yeah.
You're a mid-round pick, Dan Moore at left tackle, who kind of struggles with speed, and he was solid in preseason, but he's not great. You got, the guy next to him only had 4 starts, Dotson, and he missed a lot of camp. Kendrick Green is moving from guard to center, from Big Ten to AFC North, and got freaking steamrolled quite a bit up the middle pressure, which is not good for a quarterback who's got an arthritic knee and a rebuilt elbow. Right guard, who's pretty mediocre and injured last year, and Trey Turner, who used to be a pretty good player. We'll see what he turns into. And, we all love Chucks. He's the picture of mediocrity. You got a rookie running back, Eric Ebron's your tight end, who can't catch, but he can't block, so that's good. Fryer definitely will replace him soon. The new offensive coordinator, first go-round, the quarterbacks even said, well, it's going to take us a few weeks to kind of figure out who everybody is. That's just a ton. I think the other real big red flag we got a major issue with the defensive line. Lulu didn't practice today. I mean, he's a guy who, very likely could have retired this offseason. Two, it's probably out for a month at least. I mean, who knows where he's at. Worley's mediocre, and the depth behind those guys is non-existent. And Cam Hayward's starting to wear down. He's older in his career. If one more injury happens on that D-line, it could be a major hindrance on the team. And then the whole thing with the secondary, you don't quite know who's playing where. Well, Sutton's never really been a regular starter, and now is he a starter on the outside and then move into slot, or is he a full-time slot, or is he a full-time outside and somebody we don't know is playing slot? I mean, that's all not been quite determined yet. Edmonds and Edmonds. Minka Fitzpatrick's probably the only thing I'm confident in. Our punter is a fat boy with diabetes, and last but not least, our long snapper's a cunt.
Is that all? Do you have any more grievances to air?
Mike Tomlin's the head coach. They haven't won a playoff game in a long time. They lost to the Browns last year twice. That's all. Otherwise, I think everything's pretty good.
Yeah. Jeremy, so what do you make of all that? Do we think that these are problems that are issues that we expect to be resolved mostly for the better? Or how much of that, here's a better question. How much of that has to work out before you are convinced that it's not going to be a disastrous season?
Well, I mean, Kendrick Green and Dan Moore, they've got promise on the offensive line, but, they're young, first time they're going to be playing NFL starters, minus a few snaps in some preseason games. I mean, that's an issue. 4 new starters on the offensive line, Okorafor moving to right tackle. Zach Banner still isn't healthy, beginning the year on IR. Stephon Tuitt beginning the year on IR, doesn't ever sound like he's gotten in football shape, from the tragedy, his brother suffered. That's clearly still messing with him, or else, he'd be ready to go. I think Tomlin said, we hope he'll be ready as soon as he can be. And it's like, that doesn't lend a lot of optimism there. Sounds like he's farther away than what, the fans probably think he is. And then honestly, the secondary is the big concern, if you ask me. Signing Akella Witherspoon, trading a draft pick. I hate that when we trade for guys on 1-year deals, but is what it is. But, I thought James Pierre looked good, but can he do it for a full 17 games? Arthur Mollett, can he play the slot effectively against, NFL receivers, not preseason guys who probably aren't making rosters. So just across the board, depth is an issue at a lot of positions, and this is the NFL. Teams get injuries all the time. So it's like, as soon as one happens, I feel like that's when you can see a potential big dip, because there's, youth and inexperience coming in to those spots, especially on the offensive line. I mean, the guys we have behind our starters right now scare the living hell out of me.
Yeah. Yeah, I understand. But it's weird. FC, I was thinking that I was
going to be the negative Nancy.
Sort of key things that I key on for the season. You were going to be negative?
Yeah, that's probably what you were thinking.
Do it. I feel positive. How about this?
I'm positive.
Me personally, I feel a little. Okay. So what are you positive about?
For example, I think that the offensive line this year is going to be better than last year. You can't define how terrible Marquise Pouncey, Alejandro Villanueva, and David DeCastro were last year. You can't put into words how terrible they actually were. I actually like Dan Moore Jr. The day that we drafted him, I said he's going to be our starter at left tackle. Now, I understand people are going to say that when Zach Banner comes back, I don't think Zach Banner back. I said that since April. I don't think he's a starting player. I don't think he's good enough to play in the NFL, and I think he's a waste of a roster spot. I think that probably the biggest thing that's being overlooked going into the Buffalo Bills game is the Steelers are going to need to replace 21 sacks from Stephen Tuitt and Bud Dupree. Now, I understand we had Ingram, we have Highsmith, but Tuitt's going to be the one guy that we really are going to miss. I think that they have plans for Kel Weatherspoon long term. I think that with Joe Hayden saying that he's going to be looking at the agency market, I think that he basically thought to hint that this is his last year in Pittsburgh, one way or the other. I think that Weatherspoon's personality, temperament, it really meshes well with Mike Tomlin. I think that they are very similar, articulate, intelligent, thoughtful, religious type of men, and I think that's going to be one of the surprise signings. And I was not a huge fan of his coming out of Colorado or his play in San Francisco. I thought it was pretty good, but I think we have very good skill position players. I kind of sort of agree with Perch. Tight end with Ebron and Fryer is going to be interesting. It might be a good interesting. Dogs one bone. I know Eric Ebron has teased us. I know he's horrible as a run blocker. He has ability to pass.
Yeah, I mean, okay, here's how I looked at it. Ben, in the limited amount that we've been able to see him from everything we've heard, I think he looks fresh in a way that he couldn't make it last year. I mean, if you think about what the guy's schedule was between the injury and when last season started and everything that happened during the course of the season and having no running game and like a lot of issues that happened last year, it's sort of predictable that he might be a little fresher this year. But, it's sort of like if that guy's playing well, I feel, immediately better about the Steelers' chances than I would if he wasn't. So let's start with that. Secondly, the additions that they made in the offseason, as you alluded to earlier, with Colbert having a pretty good offseason, the veterans that they added, the trades that they made, the rookies that they brought in, I think are all positive additions. I mean, we can debate whether the offensive line is going to be better or not, but there's no way to really know with young players until they play a little bit together to see if this five can at least match the standard of last year in terms of, overall, and maybe be a little bit better in the running blocking game. But man, you added Najee Harris and you added Pat Freiermuth. Even if you have Eric Ebron, to match with him as the second tight end or as the other tight end, that still feels better than what they had last year. And they didn't have Pat Freiermuth last year. They had pretty much just Eric Ebron. And of the offensive line guys that they added, I feel are at least equal to, if not better than, the guys that departed the way that DeCastro and Pouncey were playing. So, yeah, I'm not thrilled about Chooks back at right tackle. And, Dan Moore is a big question mark. It could take him a whole season to really settle into playing left tackle in the NFL or never. So it's really hard to say that. But I kind of feel like just the offense seems in better shape than it was at the end of the season last year. A lot of great skill talent. And on defense, on paper is not the same as the real thing, but it sort of feels like, Alualo apparently had a day off today because it was wet and they were just trying to take care of his legs and that he should be fine to practice tomorrow and to start on the weekend. And yeah, missing Tuitt is a big downgrade to the next man up, but for a couple of games, I feel like you can overcome that. The secondary stuff, I don't know. Everybody's complaining about the secondary. Still, the middle of the field issues is really where they've had problems for years. And adding Joe Schobert, if you have Joe Schobert and Devin Bush for the middle of the field, that feels better than what they had last year. So you see what I'm saying? It's like they may not be perfect now, and they definitely are. There's a lot of question marks. But I feel like the situation is at least a little better than it was last year, and they won 12 games last year. I mean, Perch, jump in and tell me how I'm crazy.
You're crazy. How long has Schobert been here? 3 weeks? He's calling the plays. Even he's faced with a defensive signal caller. Has he played any snaps with Bush? I mean, there's a lot of continuity stuff. Yeah. I mean, I don't even know. I would assume the team knows who the nickel corner is, but I don't know. I think Sutton probably goes there. It's hard to say exactly what they're doing. You would think that they like Pierre enough to put him on the outside, but does Sutton start on the outside, and when they go to three corners, and he slides in? I kind of wonder about I'm wondering a lot about Carl Joseph, another guy they just picked up. I know he's on the practice squad, but I'm kind of thinking that he kind of might profile to fit into that spot at some point too. So there's just so many different things. And the big thing to me is the trenches. We got major issues on both sides of the line right now. It just, the drop from Tuitt to Wormley is pretty big, but the depth after that, I mean, you've got to wave people in, and who are we waving in? I mean,
yeah, I mean, I'm saying there's nobody in the NFL that has depth everywhere, right? I mean, offensive line especially, man, if you got 5 guys who can start and you might have a 6th guy who could step in, I think you're better off than 80% of NFL teams right there. But yeah, D-line, it's like, when you're missing one of your top guys, if not your top defensive lineman, it's never going to be as good as it would be without that. But I don't know, FC, do you have the level of Dyer? I mean, Perch sounds like he's ready to jump off of the bridge down there across from Three Rivers.
Thinking, let's wait until after week 1 and see what they do against Buffalo. Buffalo's a pretty good barometer in a lot of ways. I believe in Carlos Davis and Isaiah Buggs, but I think a lot of Steeler fans are taking for granted the loss of Tuitt. He had 11 sacks last year, and he played like power end. He had 11 sacks last year. People can say, but Cam hit. No. He was productive. He finished. And that's going to be something that I 100% agree with Perch about that we're going to be missing. We're also going to be missing, his play against the run. But I agree with you that Joe Sherwood is also a huge signing. And I'm big on Weatherspoon. I might be the only one on this podcast that is. So we're going to know a lot more after week 1. But right now, I can understand why people are ready to jump off the fucking bridge, and I can understand why people have hope.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, maybe I'm crazy. I think Sutton might not play until the nickel. I mean, first of all, you're a nickel most of the time anyway, so it sort of doesn't matter if he's not 2 on the field, but it's the tackling part of it, I don't know that he is the second best tackling cornerback on the team. So if you're going to have these, 2 wide receiver sets, I'm not sure he is the main guy you want to have out there, because that's primarily in the NFL these days a running formation. But maybe that's me.
So
Jeremy,
who do you think his corner will be?
I by mid season.
Week 1.
Well, I'm just saying, Carl Joseph in mid season might be your starter in base, or your starter in nickel. Especially on early downs, and then on third down you have Cam come in. But I think on the outside right now, they'll start with Sutton. I think they'll start with Sutton and Hayden on the outside week 1, and work Witherspoon in. Seems like it.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
I think Pierre is going to be in there. I think Witherspoon is basically depth. They don't want to put Justin Lane on the field because they've seen him play enough. But, if there was or any of the other corners, they now have a competent backup. Because I don't think Justin Lane's a competent backup.
No, anybody. I mean, so Jeremy, I'm nobody was a bigger James Pierre fan than me. I was convinced that they were going to roll James Pierre, but I don't know. How do you see this Witherspoon signing? He was, he was a sort of a coveted free agent this year, and signed in Seattle, and actually had a pretty good preseason. I mean, it's like maybe not what they expected or what they wanted, or they didn't think they were going to get the value out of it, and they decided to move on. But it seems crazy that you would sign a big free agent deal and go in 2 or 3 weeks of just preseason to suddenly becoming on the bench, for a team that has 3 corners ahead of you. What do you think they're really planning there?
Well, I mean, I don't think Witherspoon's gonna have that big of an impact in week 1. He's got a short week to absorb the playbook, get out there, learn the signals, that type of thing. I mean, I definitely think he's going to help, though, this year. I mean, he's a tall, a very athletic corner who can run. I mean, that's something, and also has experience. I think that's the other big thing. James Pierre, played, 40 snaps last year as a boundary corner. Outside of Cam Sutton and Joe Hayden, there is no one else at corner that's played a lot of corner in the NFL. He's a guy that brings experience. He's got good size and athleticism. And then like FC said, he's probably in their plans for the future. They probably believe Joe Hayden, this is going to be his last year in Pittsburgh. He hinted at it as much. So, that gives them an option for a guy to keep around next year too, depending on how he plays this year.
Yeah, yes, it's never good to have to start the year with a lot of questions. But I like that they brought in some fresh blood and they got rid of some dead weight. That's what we're on this show. We've been calling for them to not be so attached to the dead weight and let it go. And in the last 2 years, man, they've been getting rid of a lot of that sort of what we would think is dead weight guys. Maybe the head coach is next. But it's like it feels like they at least made the moves that we expected or thought that they should make. So I'm like, I kind of feel like giving them the benefit of the doubt for a week or two, but there's no easing into any season, particularly when you start with the Buffalo Bills. Maybe it's time to move on and talk specifically about this matchup, Steelers and Bills, to open the NFL season for the Steelers on Sunday. I'll start with UFC. Let's talk about the trenches because that's the part that we're worried about. Buffalo's interior seems pretty good on defense. Their edge rushers are as much of a question mark as the Steelers' O-line. How do you see this matchup?
Starless Two-Way doesn't play. Buffalo's in big trouble, and he didn't practice today. He seems to have an ongoing lower leg. I've seen it described as an Achilles. I've seen it described as a calf. And I've seen it described as a foot. It's something that I've been following. Starless Two-Way is a very good interior run defender. If he doesn't play, I think Buffalo has a little bit of a different beast coming at them this year than they had last year. The Steelers' offense was tough to read in the preseason. From a man-to-man matchup perspective, our new offensive line, you got to favor Buffalo's front seven against the Steelers' offensive line and two tight end sets and fullback sets because the Steelers' offensive line hasn't proven nothing. What I will say is Dan Moore started 3.5 years for a top SEC program at left tackle, and he was a gamer at Texas A&M. And Keith Green's a two-time All-Big Ten player, and I liked what I seen out of Kevin Dawson last year. So at least Trey Turner, who is he going to be the NFL Pro type of player? Is he going to be what he showed last year in San Diego where he was injured? And Chucks is a bomb that hopefully he can hide. Najee Harris makes his defense or offense and run game completely different and special. He's the best Steeler running back that I can remember. Besides for Frank Harris, who I can remember at the end. I think he has more overall talent and ability. He's everything that Willie Parker and Jerome Bettis were combined, but he don't fumble, and he's a better pass catcher. So we have a special back, offensive line, and, candidates play guard isn't enough. So, I'm a wait-and-see move, but I'm more optimistic than most fans would be. I think the Steelers are going to run the ball successfully, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Najee Harris up 120 yards rushing.
So, Perch, give me the flip side to this. What are you thinking about Buffalo and how this matchup is for the Steelers?
Well, we've seen it the last couple of years. We have a tough time containing Josh Allen. He'll get out and scramble a little bit or, get some yards with his legs or just scramble enough to get a nice pass downfield. And we were able to contain him for about a half, both games that we played him. And then eventually just breaks it open. And, they've got a lot of weapons on an offense. They picked up Emmanuel Sanders now. And, they've got a lot of different guys they can throw the ball to between tight ends and receivers. To me, I think it goes back to the side that FC was talking about. The Steelers, if they can establish a run game, that's Buffalo's Achilles heel, and especially if Starlet Lutelele is out of the game, that hurts them a little bit up the middle. And if we can actually establish, that's how teams can beat Buffalo, is just grind them out. You could get chunk yards against that team. Lord knows what our offensive line is going to be like, and we've got a play caller we haven't seen, for the Steelers before. So that's going to be the key: is can we get establish the run and then get some play action off of that, and then, protect Ben and protect that young offensive line and get some confidence in Najee Harris and all that. That's, to me, more the key than anything else.
I mean, Jeremy, we've been accused on this show of talking about the things that Devin Bush is not that good at, but it feels like going sideline to sideline and maybe spying a guy like Josh Allen is exactly what he can do that they haven't always had in their disposal. And the problem with trying to do that in previous years, like last year, he was hurt for the game. The year before that, if you put him in that position of spying the quarterback, then you have no, covering the middle of the field, you've lost a guy there that you're counting on to cover. So now with Schobert, it feels like they're in a slightly better position to defend a team like Buffalo. But, it's still you're going to still concede a lot of yards because maybe you got to play zone or something, and Stephon Diggs is going to eat you a little bit. But I don't know. What do you think the approach is that the Steelers could do with the personnel that they have that might change the outcome from what it's been the last couple of times?
Well, I mean, if anything, obviously you have to contain Josh Allen. Devin Bush being a spy might be an option there. But I think the biggest thing is if you limit Stephon Diggs, I don't think the rest of their offense contains a ton of world beaters, to be honest. Emmanuel Sanders is on his, fourth team in the last 6 years. Denver, San Fran, New Orleans, now Buffalo. I mean, he's a guy we're familiar with, obviously started his career in Pittsburgh and everything. Dawson Knox, he's good, but he's not consistent. They switch between their two backs a bunch, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss. So, I mean, but really, if you can limit Josh Allen, obviously, that's the guy who makes that team special. I don't think they're overly talented on offense, but last year they all managed to work together, to give Josh Allen what could have been an MVP-like season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, Perch. I feel like Josh Allen, as good as, he is natural talent-wise at throwing the football and as improved as he's been in terms of as a passer, it's really him running the football, I think, that's dangerous. He's such a good runner, very instinctive, and is not just a guy that's going to run and take a slide or do anything dumb. He's going to make very smart decisions running the football. Traditionally, it feels like the Steelers have stopped guys like that. No? Maybe?
Not him. Have they beat him yet? I just remember. I remember one half of the two games that they played him that they really held him down, and then just the second half, it seems like it's fallen apart. But I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe they've got something different for him. But he's not just one of these, Lamar Jackson types that you can kind of figure out and pigeonhole in. He's a complete passer who happens to have legs and is athletic and young and dumb and willing to take some hits still. So that is, like you said, that's what makes him dangerous. It's like a young Ben.
Yeah. FC, what do you think ultimately, what's the outcome here to this? Are the Steelers able, are this going to be sort of a low scoring affair, or will this be a game where the Steelers have to put up points in order to be able to have a chance in this game? It just feels like week one, man, we just never quite know totally, but especially this year, you got a new offensive coordinator, a new running back, a new plan, a new offensive line. I mean, I'm not sure I have any idea what the Steelers are going to do. A pretty good idea what Buffalo is going to try to do. No idea what the Steelers are going to do.
I could see multiple scenarios, but the scenarios that I think are the most likely if you're a Steeler fan is going to be a combination of what all three of you said. One, I think that Devin Bush is going to be in that predator role where he's going to spy and follow Allen. Number two, Joe Schobert makes a difference in coverage because he has the ability to not only cover the hook curl, but he has the ability to drop into the deep comeback. And despite what people think, that's where Stephon Diggs makes a lot of his living. I don't think that Josh Allen is a very good thrower of the ball. I think Brian Dabble, their offensive coordinator, did a phenomenal job of scheming. Phenomenal to make him look like a quality quarterback. If you take away the deep comebacks, you take away the hook curl, if Devin Bush is able to drop and Schobert is the one that's spying, because I'm sure they're going to vary it to you're not going to have one particular guy that's constantly spying. They'll get the strength of the coverage or the strength of the formation, where will determine who the spy will be. I'm sure that there's plenty of tricks up their sleeve, but I think that the Bills' offense, and overall, I think the Bills are one of the best coach teams in the NFL. McDermott's a fantastic head coach. Brian Daboll's a great coordinator. And I believe Leslie Frazier's their defense coordinator. I'm not 100% positive of that. But whoever their defense coordinator is, I believe it's Leslie Frazier, is very good. I think that if you can take away that hook curl in the deep comeback from Stefan Diggs, even if he catches the ball, if he has to pay the price, he gets zapped a few times, he's not the same type of player. He never has. But if you let Stefan Diggs get going, you can look at last year's game and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, Perch, it feels like one of the reasons the Steelers didn't have as much success against Josh Allen the last couple of years is because Minkah Fitzpatrick wasn't being a disruptive player, and I'm guessing that has something to do with what they had to do to watch Josh Allen. So, in other words, it takes Minkah out of the equation in the short areas, and he's more like playing center field, so that the underneath players can take more chances on Josh Allen. Maybe did you see anything like that?
Not that I recall. I mean, that may have been some of it, but hey, Terrell Edmonds, that should be his job. You got to keep Fitzpatrick back. Let him do what he does, and keep Edmonds near the line so he doesn't screw up too much in coverage.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there's another guy like we never mentioned him, and even if he's the worst or the second worst starter that they have, still a guy that's played a little bit better year to year, and like Devin Bush, I think they're both in the same kind of position. If you give them the right job to do, they can do a really good job of it. They may not be the most versatile players that they've got going right now, but it's like if you try to get them doing what they're good at, they seem to have a lot of success with that. But I don't know. Let's talk about the other side of the ball for a second, Jeremy. Steelers offense, even with the offensive line question marks. We assume they're going to come out and throw the ball. Is this going to be a year where, they get you threatening? We're going to threaten you with running the football, but then we're going to use it to do a bunch of stuff. Like, to me, Matt Canada's MO is, he makes you think he's going to do something and then gives you something else once in a while that really throws you for a loop. That's when it's working. When it's not working, defenses are sitting on everything that he does. Wondering, what your take is on what our expectations should be for Matt Canada as an NFL offensive coordinator this year.
Well, we're going to expect Big Ben to play under center. Past few years, Ben's playing almost exclusively from the shotgun. One thing they, had to reintroduce this year, and Ben even said is, we're going to play under center. We saw a bit of it in the preseason. We saw, the jet sweeps coming across, fly sweeps, showing motion. I think you're going to see a lot of motion in Matt Canada's offense. He had a lot of it when he was at Maryland. I'd like to see us do under center a little bit, but I think Ben is our best player by far. Going to be a Hall of Famer. I'd still let him sling the ball around. Honestly, I'd like to see us run out of some 4 wide sets this year. We have 4 wide receivers who can all play, who are all threats. And that's one area where Buffalo is not that deep, is, secondary, just kind of like us. I'd really love to see Najee Harris, running over some defensive backs that have to come up and play him in the run game. Try to tackle him, be my guest. That's something I'd like to see on Sunday a little bit.
Yeah, FC, I agree with Jeremy. I also think passing out of the 2 tight end set might be another thing that really works for them. Like, instead of just thinking, well, we have 2 tight ends in the game, you're going to try to run, and then you have Eric Ebron losing a matchup, it feels like you want to do some passing out of that, or bring 2 tight ends in the game and spread Ebron out wide. Are we going to get a little of that formation creativity this year that we've been missing for like a decade?
If Matt Canada is what he has showed the last 5 years in coaching it's going to be. And don't be fooled by the preseason. Matt Canada's offense has about 100% more vertical passing than you've seen so far in this year's preseason. I'm just saying the guy that is 3-1 as a coordinator / head coach versus top 5 teams in college football over the last 5 years. The only coordinator to beat 2 top 5 teams in 1 year in Clemson and Penn State and put up over 50 points in both games. So, Matt Canada, IQ, play calling, and stuff like that. Now, if he gets to do his thing, now is that going to be, is he going to have directives from the head coach? Is he going to have directives from the management and from the owner where they have to do certain things? Then that's not going to be Matt Canada's offense. So, as I said earlier, we'll see week 1. But if he gets to run the offense that he ran at Maryland and at the University of Pittsburgh, it's going to be a little bit more fun than people really think from this preseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think you're right. I mean, we joke about it, but it just does feel like there has to be a breaking point that if you bring an offensive mind who likes to do something different and you don't give an opportunity to actually do that, it's just kind of not fair to anybody. And then you end up with this tension between what your coordinators and players would like to do.
For 15 or 17 years that never gets to be a head coach, that goes on to win 3 Super Bowls like Bill Walsh, or goes on to win a Super Bowl like Bruce Arians, or is a complete failure like Mike Martz. So I'm not going to say that Matt Canada is more Mike Martz, or if he's more Bill Walsh, but sometimes there's not too many Sean McVays out there that, hey, my grandfather did this, my granddaddy did this, and I blew John Gruden, so I get to coach the Los Angeles Rams. There ain't so much of that in the NFL.
He made it underwater, across the pool and back. That's how he got the gig.
Correct.
Something like that. Anyway, I don't know, Perch. Last word on this matchup for now before we get back to our predictions. I'll give it to you.
I think we covered pretty much everything. I just, everybody needs to remember, and this will be my last word. Don't overreact to week 1. We're not going 17-0. We're not going 0-17, no matter what happens in this game.
Yeah, probably true. Good way to put it. Hey, let's quickly go around to our around the league pick segment. I'm sure we have some new sponsors this year. FC, tell us about it.
Chico's Bill Bonds, Mike Pereira, that corrupt, no good piece of shit director of the Players Union, Troy Vincent, and I think DeMaurice Smith. And don't forget to tune in to, I believe it is 8:30 a.m. Los Angeles. You can give the call singers there, Jeremy. 10:30, right around the time I'm waking up on the East Coast. 1:30, so I'm probably going to check it out on the old computer. So,
what day of the week?
It's on Sunday.
On Sunday, 10:30 a.m. That's a perfect way to get started with your NFL football day. And it's AM 8. What's it called?
It's 8:30 a.m. Los Angeles Sports.
Right.
There you go.
Me for being a stoner, I was all over it.
You really were, and Jerky Boys as well. So we've already confirmed that you are the man. Let's talk for a second about a couple games. I'm going to try to keep track this year so that we can all be held accountable because the best kind of ability on this show is accountability. So I'll start with you, Perch. You're the opening game for the NFL season. Your Tampa Bay Buccaneers and your Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question: who will win this game? And secondly, is Tampa Bay pretty much the favorite to repeat?
I'm going to take the Bucs. I mean, the Cowboys are going to be a pretty interesting watch this year. They've got so much damn talent on that team, especially on the offensive side. But they always seem to figure out a way to come right around 500. But that should be a pretty good game. But the Bucs home Thursday night, getting their ring and all that stuff. I got to think the Bucs win it. As far as them being the favorites to repeat, I'd say no. I don't think they're the favorites to repeat, but I think that they'll be very good this year and they'll be back in the playoff. They've got Tom Brady. I mean, they've got a really good defense, but it's so tough to win. You saw what happened to Kansas City last year, trying to make that run 2 years in a row. Inevitably, and now especially with 17 games, your depth's really going to get tested. And it may just be the team that wins Super Bowls from now on who's the healthiest or has the best depth, because you know how hard it is to keep a team together for 16 games. If you're playing 17 and then 3 or 4 playoff games, you're hitting 21 games, depth is going to be huge. You're either going to have really good depth or you're going to have a year where you get lucky and don't have a lot of guys get hurt. So it's really going to be a coin flip, I think, with that extra game thrown in.
Jeremy, what say you?
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is going to win this. They have more experience. I understand Dallas is really talented. I'm still curious how much this shoulder injury is going to linger for Dak Prescott throughout the season. I don't know how much it's going to be a factor week 1, but I think that's something to watch down the stretch for the Cowboys. But, I mean, I do think Tampa Bay is the favorite to repeat, or at least the favorite in the NFC, until someone steps up and says, oh, hey, we're going to beat you guys, because they returned all 22 starters. Super Bowl teams normally don't do that. Everyone's bought in, and they have a guy who's won 7 freaking rings in Tom Brady. He knows what it takes to get there and repeat. And if he can get the Bucs dialed in his first year there to get to the Super Bowl and win it, I think there's a good chance they do that again.
Yeah. FC, what's your take?
I'll take the Buccaneers over the Cowboys. The Dak Prescott injury, actually, familiar with. It's a combination of the deltoid and latissimus dorsi. I'm not being cute or funny. And it feels like you're getting stabbed, right in between your armpit and shoulder. And it hurts. But I think that if he had a start 2 weeks ago, he could have, to be honest with you. Yeah. And I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be your representative from the NFC in the Super Bowl. I'm not willing to say they're going to win the Super Bowl. They returned all their starters, plus they added Gio Bernard, who's a nice little third down back. They had what I thought was a very good draft considering where they picked. I like Joe Tyron. I believe he's popular with a few people. He doesn't necessarily have the numbers from the 40. He doesn't put together. He just really gets it done on the field. Take Bucs, and I think they'll be your representative in the NFC for the Super Bowl.
I like Tampa Bay to win this game by double digits. I don't think it's going to be a close game. First of all, it's this Thursday night before the season, and generally the Super Bowl champ comes in there and just puts a whooping on somebody, even when they're a team without question marks. Dallas, you don't know about what their quarterback situation is, and they don't have the same offensive line like we have in our minds that they had for several years, and their defense was terrible last year. Now they got some guys back. Leighton Vander Esch apparently is going to healthy and ready to play again and whatever. But yeah, I don't know. Dallas is going to have to show me for me to believe in them. As to the Bucs, I think right now they start off as the best team and the favorite. But yeah, injuries could blow it up at any minute. If Tom Brady gets injured, what does that do to that team? I mean, they'll still be pretty good, but they're not going anywhere without Tom Brady, no matter how loaded they are. Best wide receiver group or receiving group total in the NFL, and by a wide margin, I think. I feel like Chris Godwin is now taking a step where he might be, if not the number one wide receiver, 1A, and then that means you have Antonio Brown, Evans, and Rob Gronkowski, along with Chris Godwin, who's now virtually a 1. Nobody has that. And they added Gio Bernard, who I thought was the best running back that Cincinnati had. I don't know what the hell Cincinnati was thinking in that move, but they seem to be all in on the Joe Mixons of the world and all that. So they've done what they've done. Move on quickly to your Cleveland Browns and Kansas City Chiefs. If you believe the Cleveland hype train, this is going to be a barn burner, a big game. If you don't believe in Cleveland, they're going to get blown out. I'll start with you, FC. What's your take on this?
I figured you were going to start with me. This one's either going to be ugly, where Kansas City is going to maybe beat them by 5 touchdowns, or it's not going to be ugly, and I think Kansas City is going to beat them by 10 points. Is Cleveland going to be able to run the ball on the Chiefs? If the answer is yes, I think the Chiefs are going to win by 10 points. If the Browns are not able to run the ball on the Chiefs, I really don't buy into Baker Mayfield too much. Jarvis Landry's got great speed for a tight end, though, but he's really fucking slow for a wide receiver. Understand he manages to get open. You got Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, great in the video game. I mean, phenomenal in the video game. Unfortunately, the only record that he holds is most drop passes in a playoff game. In the, two that he played in 2. And I believe the one he had 3 touchdowns, I'll give him credit. The other one, I believe he had 7 drop passes. I don't buy into him. I really don't. I think last year was COVID weirdness. And I think the Chiefs are going to win, and I think they're going to win handily.
Perch, what's your take?
This is my lead pipe lock of the week. That spread is way too small. Chiefs are going to win by at least double digits, maybe 2 touchdowns. I got them winning by like 17. I'm going to say 34-17, walking away. And I'll jump on Cleveland for a minute here. It's amazing how much one game can do to perception. Remember the last game of the regular season, the Steelers played their backups and were 1 play away from knocking the Browns out of the playoffs. Did the Browns get all kind of Super Bowl hype this year if they missed the playoffs last year? Does anybody think anything different? And then they go to the playoff game, and Pouncey snaps the opening snap over Ben's head for a touchdown, and Cleveland holds on and wins the game, and the Steelers fall apart. And then they get bounced the next week. You know, if none of that happens, if Pittsburgh just played their starters and knocked Cleveland out at the end of last year, do people think that team's got a legitimate chance this year? I mean, Pittsburgh and Baltimore blew them the hell out early in the season. So did Cleveland really gain that much during last season? In this offseason, it remains to be seen. But I think the Chiefs are still my Super Bowl favorite. You know, they're healthy, they're at home, and they're going to win by 17.
Jeremy, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a rematch of last year's AFC Championship game, but I mean, I don't understand. I understand the hype behind the Browns. I do, you know, because they had their nice little run last year. But I mean, like, they added some nice pieces. You know, John Johnson came over in free agency, but I mean, the weakness of that defense is still they can't cover anyone. You know, Ronnie Harrison is a nice run defender, but you ask him to cover, game over. He's not sticking with anyone with NFL speed. And then, you know, they're starting Greg Newsome this year. They're hoping he's got a fast learning curve. Greedy Williams behind him, you know, he has not lived up to the hype. The weakness in that team is still the secondary, and that's the one place the Chiefs excel, is exploiting matchups, getting people open. Tyreek Hill can run past all of them, you know, anyone in the NFL. Really, I definitely think the Chiefs are going to win. I think it's going to be a bigger win than people are expecting, just because people are expecting Cleveland to come out and be this great team. But like FC said, if they can't run the ball and they're forced to go to the, you know, be in this catch-up mode with the passing game, it's just not going to happen. That's not the team they're built to be.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like...
Real quick question. I'm absent-minded. Can anybody name me either one of the Cleveland Browns starting defensive tackles?
Yes.
Only because you got it right in front of you. Go ahead, name one.
Malik Jackson is one of them, and Andrew Billings is the other. I can't believe Billings is still in
he played back because he is down to 278 pounds. And they did cut Sheldon Richardson. Larry Nibwikwe left for Cincinnati.
Yeah, that guy was their best. That was their best defensive lineman last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. I mean, and I do agree with you, Jeremy, completely about the secondary being a major problem, major issues, and major question mark, but I don't know who their interior defenders are. I mean, hey, Clowney and Myles Garrett outside, that sounds great, but I don't know their defensive backers.
I mean, Clowney's so overrated, and they picked up Tack McKinley. I mean, those are maybe my 2 least favorite defensive ends in the entire NFL.
I mean, guys, here's the thing. Every year it's like this. There's always some team that's the paper champion, that the winner of the offseason. And Cleveland is a champion of being champion of the offseason. I mean, there's nobody that gets more hype on the offseason than the Browns. I mean, for years, right? And it's like, I think you see enough of these things and it's like, okay, maybe they will outperform my relatively low expectations for them. But until they actually do it, I'm going to be reluctant to really think that it's more than just a hype train. There's a lot of guys they have who get a lot of hype that aren't necessarily like guys that are helping them win games throughout the year. They wouldn't have been in that position they were in last year, being a wild card team, if they had been able to beat either of the two good teams in their division. And I'm not really sure what they did in the offseason that's going to make them more readily able to defeat the teams in their division, other than winning a playoff game and building some confidence maybe going into the offseason. But they're sort of acting like they're the favorites now. And it feels like they're believing the hype, and I'm not sure that the other teams are going to just roll over because they believe the hype about themselves. I think actually Kansas City, I said this on my other show earlier today, I think I saw them a little bit in preseason, and they look kind of geared to run the football. Like they're into running the football this year. And not to say they won't still be high-flying on offense and all that stuff, but I think they might try to exploit teams who are really worried about trying to cover their guys by then running the football against those looks. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, if he's healthy, I think behind the line that they have, I think is going to be a fairly good run-blocking line. I think they're in a similar situation to the Steelers. They have obviously great skill players, and they have this potential running game that might favor their offensive line a little bit, so they don't put quite so much pressure on the O-line. So I'm thinking this might, if you're Cleveland, I think Cleveland will be able to run the ball a little, but are they going to be able to stick with that long enough to stay in the game? If they get behind, are they still going to keep giving the ball to Chubb? I'm not sure that they're really. I think Cleveland's weakness on offense is if they can't stay in the game by running the football or get a lead by running the football. As much as people want to hype their receivers in Baker Mayfield, I don't think that suits them. And defense, it's the same kind of thing. It's like if they get behind on defense and they're struggling to do either stopping the run or stopping the pass, if they can't figure out a way to be at least competent at both those things, I don't think that much of their season chances. And it wouldn't shock me if they were third in the division. But you listen to everything in the entire zeitgeist of NFL football coverage. It feels like everyone's all in on the Browns right now, and I'm not sure I can figure out why. Last one, but the best one, it's your Pittsburgh Steelers and their 5-star matchup against the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park, New York, with fans in the stands. And, Bills fans, and nothing bad to say about Bills fans. They suffered quite a bit. Although they had their Super Bowl visits, they didn't get a championship and bring it home. And they have one of the better teams that they've had in years and years there. Feel like that's going to make it a tough matchup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm going to start with you, Jeremy. What's your take on what will happen in this game, week one? As hard a game to predict as I think we've had in a long time for your Pittsburgh Steelers show.
Yeah, I'd agree, especially with just the new offense, Ben running the new offense. I think that's going to be the real wild card in this game. We know what to expect out of Buffalo. They're virtually the same team they were last year. I think the Steelers actually pull off a narrow victory. I think it's going to end up being like 27-21. I think people still don't understand how good Big Ben is at this stage in his career. Everyone was saying, this guy's, has fallen off the edge of a cliff. Really? Threw for 4,000 yards last year, 38 touchdowns. Isn't like that just went away. And if anything, he's healthier this offseason. He got to rest the elbow as opposed to all last offseason where he had to get the elbow ready for the season. I think from the little bit we saw in the Detroit game, I think he's poised for a huge year. I think Freiermuth is going to end up, leading red zone touchdowns this year. I think he's going to be used in a lot of different ways down there. And I think we can attack people how we want to this year with a new impressive running back in Najee Harris too. Small margin of victory, 27-21. We're going to surprise some people this year.
Perch, I got a feeling you're going to disagree.
No need to overthink this one, guys. This is the easiest to call for a Steelers game in a long time. Too many red flags, too much new stuff, going in a hostile environment, on the road, starting 5 fucking rookies. We're going to be starting 5 rookies. For all the years we sat here and bitched on this call about, boy, trusted veteran syndrome and taking too long to get the rookies. We're starting 5 on the road in Buffalo. Too many issues. Buffalo's too good. Bills 30, Steelers 20. And I think the Steelers team has promise. I agree everything he just said about Ben. Ben's going to have a good season. He's going to be better than he was last year. But I think there's going to be some speed bumps along the way. Week 1 being one of those. Bills win, cover, lock it up.
So wait, who are the 5 rookies? I'm confused. I count 3 or maybe 4.
You got 2 on the offensive line, 1 on the running back, 1 tight end who is listed as a co-starter, and your punter. That's 5.
Oh, the punter.
Yeah.
Harvin the third, baby. Preston Harvin.
FC, what's your take, bud?
Shockingly, I think I'm going to be the one person that mentions the nasty phrase. The first one to really get into it is COVID-19. I think COVID-19 is going to play a big part in this game. Last season, empty stands. Mr. Allen had no problem getting the calls in from Mr. Dowdle. There was no Bills Mafia. Nothing for him to get overexcited, have an adrenaline drop. It really, whatever some of the things that you heard about him coming out of college, mentally weak, questionable toughness, questionable mental aptitude. I think those things are going to actually be proven to be true. And the home game, with all the stands, he's going to be juiced up. He's the man. I think that's not going to be too good. I think that the Steelers added 2 very intelligent football players, super smart football players in the offseason, and future Dr. Witherspoon. And the big addition is Joe Schobert, who he reads the game like a James Ferrier. He reads the game like a Jack Ham. Mentally, just football. He's a football guy. He's a football Jesse, to quote Mr. Mark Schroll. I was going to pick the Pittsburgh Steelers 27-21, but that sucks that Jeremy went first and he picked 27-21. So I'm going to pick the Steelers 34-13.
Whoa.
And I think that it's not going to be that. I think the Steelers defense might put up 2 touchdowns because I really don't trust Mr. Allen.
I just, I believe a little bit about what each of you said about this game. But I get the feeling that this is going to be, I don't know if it's sustainable, but I feel like this week is like the Steelers Super Bowl. Like, I feel like this, you think about the last game that they played and what they felt like at the end of last year and getting dicked around with no bye week and, Ben being out of gas and not being able to run the football or do, Steeler-like things on offense, despite the fact that they have those skill guys and so on and so forth. I have a feeling that in their hearts, it's their Super Bowl that they're going to, totally sell out to try to win. I think the key to the game is, can the offensive coordinator and quarterback figure out a way to protect his young and, new offensive line enough so that they can get the job done, but not be exposed for the things that they don't know how to do yet together or that they're not as good at together. So, in other words, not to put a lot of pressure on them to do complicated things, but to accentuate the things that they're good at. I haven't seen the 5 of them play together, so I couldn't tell you exactly what that is, but my take is you want to give Dan Moore some run game so that he can that guy can't just tee off and run speed around the corner against him. So, in other words, you have to give him some situations where he can have a chance against that outside guy. He can run block against him. He can push him past the play. He doesn't have to, just get to 3rd and long and have to protect that guy screaming towards the quarterback, because I think that's a situation that nobody wants, or else there'll be a lot more dump offs short of the sticks, which is the thing that we've all grown to hate. I don't know. I kind of think there's a lot of great things about Buffalo, and they're a team that, is capable of playing some really, really good football, and they're extremely well coached. I felt like last year was a very poor showing by our coaching staff, but half that coaching staff is gone. I mean, the head guy is still there, but I think they'll come out a little bit better this year. I don't know that it's anything other than a really close game and a big tester, but I think our quarterback has a fire under his ass that. Okay, he had a little bit of it last year because he wanted to come back, for his teammates and come back from the elbow and whatever. But in a way, it just feels like he's, you think about the thing he did today, coming out and talking about TJ Watt. Like, I just feel like he's like, look, man, I'm not fucking around. We were going to win this year, straighten shit out, and I'll do my part. I'll take us there. So I'm going to trust Ben for a game till we see otherwise. I'll leave you with this last question for my last thought. I'll go first, Perch, and that is, as questionable as this offensive line is, do you think it's worse than the offensive line from 2008? ? That's my last word, Perch.
It's just more inexperienced, and the offensive line we're going to see in week 1 might be completely different from what we see in week 17. It might be the same 5 guys. But the biggest thing is the continuity. I mean, you've got a new offensive coordinator, a new offensive line coach, 5 new guys in new spots. It's just I've got more concern about them the first 4 weeks of the season than I do long term. So I think that's the big issue.
That's fair. Last word, Jeremy.
I think Pat Freiermuth plays a big part in this game. I think we're going to see kind of what FC said. I think we're going to see some creativity with our 2 tight end set. He's tough to cover in the red zone. He's got an incredible catch radius. He just doesn't drop balls. I think that's going to be a guy, and obviously I think Najee Harris is going to have a big game too. I think we're going to really challenge Buffalo in the run game.
FC, you're going to let this go without, we haven't mentioned any of the Steelers wide receivers who I think are pretty good this year. But no, what's your last word?
The 3rd or 4th best wide receiver group in the NFL. But my final thought will be, when the quarterback leaves the tackle box, he loses all protections.
So I'm making the symbol for personal foul, roughing the passer. I know he loses protection, but
you're not helmet-to-helmet contact.
Yeah, right. Personal foul, helmet-to-helmet contact. Yeah, exactly. They don't call it that way. Even if he's a runner, you still can't hit him in the eye.
There's no defenseless. There's no protections for the quarterback once he leaves the tackle box.
Yeah, well.
In other words, do you want to run your quarterback? Do it at your own apparel.
Well done. All right, gentlemen. Thanks for a good start to week 1. Week 1's a tough one. We have all these worries, and we don't really know what to expect. And it's it's nervous times for sure. But I'm glad the season has started again. It's as I get older, it's harder to make it through the off season without losing faith in everything in the world. So at least we have this every week. It feels a little bit better. So, gentlemen, thank you for being here. Jeremy Kohlman, SteelPerch, Dom, the great FC, with us once again, and let's reconvene next time and talk a little bit about a Steelers victory, perhaps, in Orchard Park, New York. Gentlemen, enjoy the Steelers game this weekend. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy and happy, and we'll talk to you after Steelers victory next week. This is your Steelers show, your Pittsburgh Steelers show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. I am, as always, your host, Bradshaw to Ben. Gentlemen, good job. Let's do it again.
Good.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Steelers Fury.